Welcome to episode 638 of the Barcelona podcast, brought to you by the Blue Wire Podcast Network. I'm Dan Hilton, and yes, I have aged about 10 years since that Barcelona versus Borussia Dortmund match started. If you want to make sure that I don't continue aging, well, does it work that way? Does time work that way? Anyway, if you want to help me out at least for as long as I wind up living, subscribe to the channel on YouTube or give a good rating on the podcast apps. Or, hey, it's the holiday season, so whether you got some money coming in for the holidays or you want to get something for your family that maybe they don't exactly want, again, we have plenty of merch, including the Hola Kool-Aids to let Barcelona fans in public who don't really know what Kool-Aids means for the general populace, let them know that you're a fan and kind of be a secret wink to others in the know. So you can do that to help me out as low as $3 on Patreon as well. But without further ado, let's dive in. Here are the 5 headlines from Barcelona's 3-2 victory over Borussia Dortmund. Headline 1 is focused and organized. There were some chances right in the first opening 2 minutes. Borussia Dortmund had a corner kick, and then Barcelona answered right in the 3rd and 4th minute. It was a dangerous opportunity. Olmo turned in midfield, was off to the races, across from Balde on the left, almost found Lewandowski, then across on the right, almost found Raphinha. Barcelona didn't find it, but what I liked from that first even 10 minutes, it felt like Barcelona had a plan, they were focused, they were organized, and even on the road, they felt like the team as a whole, the unit, who is Barcelona's best starting 11 at the moment. And by best, I mean the most informed, not on paper, but the most informed, consistent, highest ceiling 11 that Hansi Flick can pick. We were wondering if he would go with that because on the weekend in that 2-2 draw with Real Betis, he didn't get a lot of rotation. Again, he still had to go with a pretty good starting lineup where so many of these players started, but he was able to bring Pedri and Lewandowski out in the 74th minute against Real Betis. So the lineup was a bit questionable just in terms of fatigue, but we're going to talk about fatigue in the second half because, at least in the first half, Barcelona were focused, they were organized, and they were ready to play. 8th minute, Borussia Dortmund were trying to do what many teams have done against Hansi Flick this season. It's to play themselves onside. They didn't do that. They were offside there in the 8th minute. Guirassy was onside. I thought he was offside, but then Sabitzer was definitely offside. Pena stopped it anyway. Good confidence for him to start the match. 11th minute here, tremendous pressing from Lewandowski to start the game. A big credit to the 36-year-old against his former side on the road. He looked ready to press, and when he looks ready to run, that does wonders for Barcelona at the tip of their attack in turning the opponent over. Balde was also pinching high, and Raphinha and Olmo were doing the running in the middle on that double pivot that Dortmund was trying to play. The turnover died at the foot of Lamine Yamal, though in the 11th minute, didn't get enough on the shot. That's okay, Lamine Yamal. But talking more about how Barcelona were defending in the 40% of time they were defending in that first half, I loved how quickly they got into their defensive shape. So even when they turned it over, we spoke about rest defense so many times before on this channel or on the podcast, that Barca's rest defense today, in the first half at least, was unbelievable. It was excellent. Casadó and Pedri in particular, but I'm going to talk about them more in the second headline. Dortmund, as far as the first part of this match, the first 20 minutes or so, a lot of Duranville trying to attack Balde 1v1. Again, I'll talk more about Balde in the second headline as well. 14th minute, so close from Barcelona, percolating, as I like to say, Barca playing out of the back against Dortmund's press. And Dortmund, by putting Sabitzer high in that press as the highest midfielder, a lot like Barcelona used to do with Busquets on that press, that being about 2-3 seasons ago, Sabitzer, I think, even though he's just 30 and does have legs, he can go just like Busquets, play 90 minutes, and he has lungs of steel, but I don't know if his quickness is good enough to be the tip of that press in that 4-4-2 that Dortmund was going with. So in that first half, when Barcelona had their legs, Barcelona very easily were bypassing Sabitzer and that press, going diagonally quite a bit from Inigo Martinez to Lamine Yamal on a number of occasions. Another time, outside of the boot pass from Lamine Yamal, but Raphinha couldn't redirect it at goal. Barcelona were the better side in the first 15 minutes of the game, no question in my mind. Headline 2 is Casadó, Pedri, and Balde on a business trip. These three in the first half of this game were absolutely, when I say on a business trip, they were there to get a result. Whether it was a draw or whether it was a win, those three were there to make sure defensively Barcelona were stable and offensively they were creating enough chances to get some goals for the forwards. And I thought those three in the first half in particular were absolutely tremendous. Now, Pedri and Casadó were even a bit too conservative for the forward line. 16th minute, Lewandowski had one from deep. In the build-up to that shot, Pedri missed both Olmo and Raphinha with runs in behind. They both threw their arms up at him, but it was just to recycle possession. 17th minute, Duranville going outside, inside on Balde, but Sabitzer couldn't finish. Dortmund also got their chances in this game, as we're going to talk about in the second half, but in the first half, they couldn't finish either. Dortmund, as I said, were targeting Balde through Duranville on the right, but Balde, with Pedri's help, was too good. He only misplayed one of his 37 passes in that first half. Pedri, Balde, Casadó, showing you that if you do not turn the ball over in your half of the field, then you do not give the opponent opportunities to come right down your throat and get good chances on their own. By pinning back the wingers for Borussia Dortmund, that meant that Duranville was stuck in the midfield in his own half of the field defending. Same thing with Gittens on the left. And so those two were a bit neutralized. Yes, Duranville had one or two opportunities against Balde, but Balde was up to the challenge. And as I said, those three in particular, Casadó, Pedri, and Balde, keeping Barcelona so composed when everybody had their legs in that first half. Again, Dortmund's whole strategy was a counter, but Barcelona, by not giving the ball away cheaply, good things were happening. They probably would have been up in that first half if Lamine Yamal had had his finishing and final ball shoes on, the way he did in the second half, but he had just brought his dribbling shoes. Some good moments for Lamine Yamal, but did not finish. Koundé got a shot off after another beautiful pressing sequence with Casadó, Pedri, and Cubarsi. Cubarsi also excellent, especially on those sidelines against Guirassy. Guirassy could not get the better of Cubarsi, at least with that high line. Again, seems like we're foreshadowing the second half here. 40th minute, Dortmund offside on what looked like the best opportunity of the first half. Guirassy was offside against Balde. Peña stopped it anyway with another incredible save from him, putting together an absolute highlight reel of offside saves this season. 42nd minute, the ref says no to a penalty. We are again foreshadowing here. Guirassy going down a bit too easily. I would maybe even consider giving him a yellow for a dive. He was onside for once, but Inigo Martinez did not get enough of him to pull him down. Again, it looked like a dive for me. I'm glad that the ref and the VAR agreed with that, because that's what takes us into the first half, where I think we've done enough foreshadowing for what's to come, with 5 goals and a ton to talk about here for the second half. Headline 3 is hello Olmo, hello Raphinha. I didn't talk about these two just yet in that first half much at all. Raphinha, I thought, had pretty quiet first half, and Olmo, he looked better than he did against Real Betis. He looked a bit more fit, and seems like they figured out how to get a fake tooth in pretty quickly. He looked a bit better, and the press, as I said, for Barcelona overall was better. And Dortmund, while they were in that mid-block looking to clog the spaces out wide for Barcelona, where it was, if Balde or Koundé was overlapping a bit more, I think they could have been stretched out, but because they weren't doing that, again, they were trying to settle everything in the middle of the field. So Raphinha's runs from the middle, and Olmo wasn't finding exactly as much space as he would have liked, but they still, I think, were working hard, putting in a shift, pressing, and finding the little space that they were given. They also, that being Raphinha and Olmo, were quite tidy. But before we do get to the first Barcelona goal in the 50th minute, offside by a mile on Dortmund's first goal of the match. Gittens was offside. Guirassy was offside. I think 5 of the players who were going forward for Dortmund, or 4 of the attackers that were on that back line for Barcelona, were offside. So easy call there. Now, for the Barcelona goal, the first one scored in the match in the 53rd minute, let's hit the tactics board. Now, again, for those who are just listening to this as a podcast, I'm going to make sure I'm descriptive as to what I'm drawing and what I'm doing on the tactics board on Big Up. That's why we do the watch along on Big Up, because I have access to the tactics board and the scoreboard and all that good stuff. I know people are asking me why I don't do the watch alongs on YouTube. On that, I do the live preview there, but I don't do that because, again, I have more resources, and more resources even coming down the pike on Big Up as well. So to explain to those listening and to show those who are watching on YouTube here for this first goal, the question of whether or not Raphinha was onside or not was quickly answered by VAR, because he was clearly onside here. This goal starts in Barcelona's half of the field, which is, I thought, in this game where so much of the good stuff began. It was Balde and Pedri again defending for their lives. I thought Lewandowski was comfortable at times when he was forced to the wing to have to defend and help out Pedri and Balde. There were times on that press when Raphinha would be in the middle, and yes, eventually they did switch it back between Lewandowski and Raphinha, but they made the most of the opportunities. It wasn't like they were quickly trying to get back in position. Lewandowski was willing to defend out wide, and I thought his selflessness tonight, we didn't talk much about Lewandowski, but his selflessness, I thought, in the press was important for Barcelona's shape, and just like Inigo Martinez, can show you a leader without kind of having to point to moments in the game when he was important. So Balde and Pedri, very close to each other, once again working hard to turn over Duranville. And so Pedri winds up getting the ball, and it is a sensational turn from Pedri on the ball, and then finding Olmo in space. Again, he could have checked to Lewandowski, he could have played it backwards to Inigo Martinez, could have tried to play square to Casadó or Balde into traffic, but instead he goes with a through ball into Olmo, and then Olmo is off to the races. Olmo with a lot of space there. He winds up meeting a little bit of a challenge right about at midfield, But once he bypasses the only man that he needs to bypass, now Barcelona are in a 3v3 situation with Olmo going downhill. And because the other man had to check to Olmo, and Lamine Yamal and Raphinha both making those runs inside into those central lanes instead of pulling it wide. And that is what frees up Raphinha. Both Lamine Yamal, again, kind of just driving to the center, and Raphinha also driving to the center, staying onside and then cutting down the angle enough. Some people were asking, why didn't Raphinha square for the FIFA pass to Lamine Yamal? Well, that's because Raphinha, A, is a goal scorer this season. That's now 6 goals in 6 Champions League matches this year, scoring in double-digit figures already. He is 1, I believe, away from tying his all-time best goal output in a single season. Raphinha is having a career year, so he has confidence, and he puts it past the goalkeeper with confidence. Good stuff all around. Another team goal that gives a good argument for why Pedri probably could be a man of a match, but also kind of shows you why Raphinha and Olmo, as quiet as they were in the first half, can come alive and get Barcelona on the front foot in the second half. Headline 4 is a bit soft. We're going to do the 1-1 now, but I know you're probably going through the math in your head and saying, well, Dan, this is headline 4 already, and we're only 2 goals into this match. And yes, I did jam the rest of the goals into the final headline, but it will all make sense because I do kind of want to talk about this one here. This is the moment when the match shifted, and when I do my 5 headlines, I do think about the twists and turns of the match. So yes, the first 45 minutes of the match felt like it was its own story, went through the 2 headlines there, and Barcelona played well and built something that should have paid dividends for the rest of this match. And then this second half did have its final twists and turns. 58th minute, Cubarsi knocks over Guirassy, gets the yellow, gives up the penalty. And I'm going to be surprised if Barcelona fans in the comments on YouTube or hitting me up on social media disagree with me. There are some, and I value your opinion, but I feel like, as people know, I have built up enough credibility by disagreeing with Barcelona deserving every call and saying, hey, sometimes the ref gets it right and it goes against Barcelona and they all even out. This is one where I thought it was the more egregious calls going against Barcelona that I have seen in a while. I think it was nonsense. It was a ridiculous call. I completely disagree with it. And kind of even doing the play-by-play of it, Cubarsi barely extended his arms. There are times when the opponent goes down a bit too easily, but when you see a full push of the arms, you could say, okay, maybe, there's enough contact. That's the letter of the law, whatever. But it felt like Cubarsi was just kind of feeling out where Guirassy was because he was looking at the ball. And I know they say don't ball watch, but he didn't even stumble over the lower body. It was merely some contact on the top half of the body. And Guirassy, who is 3 or 4 inches, or maybe not that much, but 2 or 3 inches taller than Cubarsi, felt like a guy that already should have been given a yellow for a dive in the first half. I thought he went down way too easily here. Again, basically Cubarsi bumped him in his back because he was seeing where the ball was going. And then VAR even look at this and say, it's enough for a penalty. Now, because the ref had awarded the penalty, maybe the argument for VAR is that we don't have enough that's conclusive enough to overturn it. So maybe that's why VAR said, all right, the ref said what he said, and there's enough here on the extension of the arm and contact to keep what the ref said. But for the ref to initially give this call, I think it's nonsense. I think it's a bad call. Anyway, Guirassy gets the PK, takes it, beats Pena, even though Pena got it right. So as I said, I very rarely do I complain about bad calls, but especially if Barcelona lost this match, I think this penalty certainly would have been a big conversation point on the internet. 69th minute, a good chance here. There was actually 2 chances here. Koundé on the overlap. I put my notes at this point. I love foreshadowing. I'm doing it again here. Good things happen with Koundé on the overlap or the underlap when he does get forward. Olmo and Lewandowski both getting chances because of what Lamine Yamal and Koundé had created. Again, let's put a pin on that because we're about to hit the 5th headline here. Because headline 5 is scraps for the Shark and also Guirassy. The final chapter of this match, or the final chapters, mini chapters, were all written here when the subs came on for Barcelona in the 71st minute. Raphinha, Lewandowski, and Olmo out for Ferran Torres, Fermin Lopez, and De Jong. These were the subs that I agreed with. I like, again, you go back to the watch along on Big Up, which is available as the replay, that I did call for Frankie de Jong kind of come in as a 10. Fermin Lopez, I thought was a good shout. And then Ferran Torres coming in for Lewandowski made sense to me. It's not that anybody was doing anything wrong when I'm calling for subs. It's that Barcelona were pressing hard for that whole game. In the second half in particular, Barcelona were, I think, a little more error prone because fatigue was setting in. And we'll get to that in a second with more of the goals that Dortmund is going to score. But it's okay when subs come on. I'm not saying that Ferran Torres, Fermin, and De Jong are better players than Olmo, Lewandowski, and Raphinha, but that's the point of substitutes. When you get tired legs, it's time to put in the subs, and these subs certainly made an impact. The 2-1, 75th minutes, with 4 minutes after the subs came on. Koundé, the underlapping run off of Lamine Yamal. As I said, good things happen when Koundé was getting forward, either on the underlap or the overlap on Lamine Yamal because of the attention he attracts. And that put Koundé in a 1v1 situation. The cross was to Fermin, who hit it on the volley. This is really good technique for Fermin Lopez, who doesn't really get credit on this goal for doing anything. But if he doesn't hit this first time and he doesn't hit it square at the keeper, then Ferran Torres doesn't even have a rebound to pick up the scraps on. As Sharks do, though, Ferran Torres picks up the scrap and Barcelona up 2-1. The other way, Dortmund almost immediately scored, though. Guirassy missed a wide open net on the header. So for me, who had been complaining so much on the PK, saying that Dortmund didn't deserve one there, well, they probably deserve one here, and they missed the wide open net. But the 2-2 comes anyway, 78th minute. Dortmund is onside this time. Jan Koto plays Gross, who was the sub, came in for Nuri Sahin off the bench with a lot of energy, injected something into that game, was an experienced player, 33 years young. Heck yeah, 33-year-olds out there. Plays it square against the on-rushing Pena, and Guirassy passed into the net for his brace. Barca finally on this goal give it away cheaply in their own half. A number of players, maybe Fermin Lopez could have checked back better to the ball. Nico Martinez shouldn't have given it away in his own half. Casadó was also a little bit, for the first time in this whole match, I didn't speak about every single time that he won a ball or won a tackle or won a 50-50 or won the second ball. I didn't mention every single one of those. Here, I mentioned the one time when he doesn't win it, because when he doesn't win it, Barcelona wound up having a numerical disadvantage, and then it's a goal for Dortmund. So the 2-2, and people, I think, at that point were panicking because they felt like it's more of the same, that Barcelona had been in this funk for the last month, and they cannot close out matches. Dortmund were also pushing in that last 10 minutes, so they could have easily flipped this game the other way and won 3-2 at home. They were trying to use Barcelona's fatigue against them. As I had mentioned at that point, around the 80th minute, Koundé and Balde, I thought, were completely gassed, and Casadó and Pedri, they also looked like, as much as they wanted to fight for their lives on both halves of the field, both defensively and offensively, it looked like they were gassed as well. But the 3-2, Pedri showing you that he had just enough here. 85th minute, the giveaway by Dortmund with numbers forward. Dortmund, as much as they were pushing, they were also a bit gassed. Pedri feeds Lamine Yamal after carrying it half of the field himself. So yeah, Pedri still had something to give. The ball looked like it was behind Lamine Yamal, but the youngster composed himself for the through ball to Ferran Torres. He had a lot of time, did Torres, to look at the goalkeeper, stare him in the eyes, look at that goal, and waste his opportunity, but he didn't waste it, takes advantage of it. And now Ferran Torres, for all his criticisms, 4 goals in 3 games since he returned from injury, and looking like the super sub that he's supposed to be under Hansi Flick. Hey, if Hansi Flick can extract that value, as I said, out of Ferran Torres, and Barcelona have a rotation piece between Lewandowski, Raphinha, Lamine Yamal, and Ferran Torres, there is great possibilities that Barcelona do have the forward legs and the goals in them to win some trophies this season. They're well on their way here. 90th minute, Lamine Yamal off for Pau Victor to close out the game. 93rd minute, Eric Garcia, more sub-time wasting on for Pedri to waste some more time. And yet, that almost wasn't enough. A late header for Slotterbeck gave us all a heart attack. Last 4 minutes, stoppage time, were all that Kool-Aid could handle and more. He might have been off, though, so maybe that wouldn't have mattered, but still enough to give me a heart attack and age me quite a bit throughout that 90 minutes. Barcelona, they were finally able to do something that no team had done in over 3 years at Borussia Dortmund's home stadium, and that is win in Europe. Nobody had done that in a while. It had been a fortress, but Barcelona go in and get the 3 points, and now they put themselves in a perfect spot. They are second after 6 match days in this Champions League phase. They are exactly where they want to be, where they need to be, and that just might be enough, by the way. Yes, 1 point secures it, so they need just 1 point from Benfica or Atlanta, but they might already have enough, depending on other results, to make the top 8 and be through. That is music to my ears heading into the new year, where Barcelona can take that breath. They took care of business, just like the U19s took care of business today too, winning 3-2. So there was all smiles. Barca Femini, I don't need to really talk about them in Europe until the spring, because all they do is take care of business in Europe. Barcelona still have business to take care of throughout the remainder of this 2024 in the Liga, though. So please join me on Sunday afternoon, 3 p.m. East Coast time against Leganés. I will have the watch along on Big Up for that one. In the meantime, again, if you're still with me, thanks so much for always listening to the show and watching on YouTube as we have some fun on Big Up this season with the Tactics Score Bug and all those different fun stuff. But as always, until next time, Champions League victories, it doesn't matter. after the last few seasons, I like to savor everyone regardless of what happens. But Barcelona, we're the better side today, and they deserved all 3 points. That feels good to say. And as always, until next time, what feels great to say? Forza Barca.